There we go. So welcome to one of my favorite groups of people in the entire world, which is why am I all echoey? My favorite groups of people in the entire world, which is of course we're going to start this with technical difficulties.
Yeah.
All right, so that's where you will start this with technical difficulties.
Yeah.
All right, so that's where you will start this with technical difficulties.
Yeah.
No, it's like
This is very strange. Can you guys actually hear me on top of whatever this is that's playing?
yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have this pulled up anywhere? Can you guys actually hear me on top of whatever this is that's playing?
Yeah.
Okay. Very strange. Adam, take over. I'm gonna jump out and see if I can come back in. Okay.
Sounds good.
Adam, take over. I'm gonna jump out.
So no, the feedback is coming from someone else, clearly. Sounds good. Is there another screen? Sorry for anyone listening to this. We're just trying to figure this out. Oh, there we go. Can everyone now hear? No. Okay, can everyone now hear me okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, wow. That was
There we
crazy.
go. Excellent.
Let's start that. So, okay, we saw the video. We're not going to do that again.
It was beautiful, though. It was very compelling, engaging.
Thank you. Well, that was bizarre. So I think as we talk about time travel and moving through the multiverse, or in this case, the Macroverse, something definitely glitched there. So I'm Evan Matthews, co-founder of Macroverse, joined by Adam, my co-founder in Macroverse as well, and a group of my favorite creative people on the planet. These are the people that are not largely, we'll give you all the credit. You are 100% responsible for the awesome content that we are very excited to be releasing as the first collection of series on this Macroverse platform that we've been building for the last year. We're going to talk a lot more about the platform and how the technology works and kind of why we went about building all of this in the way that we've gone about building it. In a couple of other sessions today and tomorrow, also on these various live streams. So if you want to know about, how the collection works and why did we go Web3 and all these different elements, we're going to talk about that. But right now, I really want to focus on these incredible story worlds and these universes that these people, who I am just unabashed fans of, have brought into existence. And so to do that, we asked Casey from the Hyper Room to come in and host this conversation. And so let me hand that off to Casey.
Thanks, Evan. Hey, everybody. It's great to see everybody here. I did a podcast with Adam, talk a little bit about Macroverse and things like that. And he explained in his own way, what each of the series were about. But I feel like this is going to be a better representation of what's happening here, because we have all the creators actually here to pitch all the different concepts that are coming to Macroverse EPICS. So I think, just like Evan said, we're going to go through all 5 of the series, and then we're going to come back and do a little discussion together. So first, let's talk to Evan Shapiro, who is the creator of DARKLAND. Evan, come on up and tell us, what it's about, and then we'll show some art as well as you're talking.
Thank you for this. I'm really happy to be releasing this. Really proud of the project, not just the writing, which I wrote myself, but also the artwork and the whole construct, which Frank Calico did the artwork, and a bunch of other artists work on various covers. And the Macroverse team was obviously very creatively involved every step of the way. DARKLAND is a gangster drama set against a dark, satirical Veep-like comedy set in hell. where the main character is Satan and Michael the Archangel. Satan is actually the third in line of the Satans. So Satan can be killed or can die. There are 7 princes of hell, including Lucifer and Beelzebub, who are not the same thing as Satan. They are subordinate to Satan, but also to Lucifer, who is really the consigliere of Satan. You're actually seeing Lucifer and Eve here in Eden, which is now was sent down to hell with all the fallen angels. In the Bible, in the Old Testament, in the Bible, the angels are all fallen angels. Satan was the light, God's favorite angel. And in Darkland, which is set in hell or Tyre, we see flashbacks to the original tussle between Satan the first, Michael the Archangel, Lucifer, over Earth. God had given Lucifer and Michael the go ahead, the green light, to take their architecture for Earth and build it so that they could have it for themselves. And then at the last minute, seeing how Satan's cohort, called the Watchers, were actually fucking around with the humans, including here Eve, through something using sentience or knowledge. God became angry and took Earth away from Satan, and thus the rift began. We are now eons later, and Satan's grandchild, who is gender neutral, is running Tyre or Darkland, and is planning to take over Earth, and wants to work with Michael in an alliance to do so. And that is the series, the first edition or the series graphic novel plot of Darkland.
All right, very cool, very cool. Let's go to Jeremy there from Bushidos. Tell us about Bushidos, Jeremy.
Actually, don't see. Jeremy is having some technical issues, I think.
Jeremy disappeared. I thought I saw him there a minute ago.
He reappeared and he disappeared again.
He did disappear. So you know what? Let me pull up Hex 11 and we'll bring him back in afterwards.
Okay, great. Okay, so Hex 11 is Lisa, Kelly Sue, and Lindley. Come on up and talk a little bit.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, there she is.
Wow.
Yay! Just didn't feel right.
Hi, y'all. Couldn't do it without Lisa. There she is.
Hi. Just talk about who we are and what we do. And we are the Ladies Hex. Obviously, we've got Lisa here with us, Kelly Sue Milano. I'm Lindley Forrest. And I'm going to turn it over to Kelly Sue because I think she's going to give a nice synopsis.
Yeah, I'll do the synopsis of Hex 11. So our elevator pitch for this book is it's Harry Potter meets Blade Runner. In the world of our book, magic has been discovered as a new technology, and people are able to download magical abilities to themselves the way that we would download an app to our phone. But because there are people who are naturally magical that also exist in the world, it's creating a bit of a class crisis between people who can buy synthetic magic and people who just naturally have it. And that is where we find the hero of our story. Her name is Eleanor. She's a young witch in training under the tutelage of a master witch named Vera. She's kind of in her sort of assistant mode at the beginning of the story. She's feeling pretty resentful about it. She's super bored. She wants to prove herself. So after being sent on a mundane errand, she's like, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to insert myself into this firefight that I've just stumbled upon between this black market magic dealer and a demon mercenary, and I'm going to solve some problems. And what she does actually is just create problems. And that is kind of what launches us into the first story arc of our volume and carries us through volume 2 and where we are currently in the middle of volume 3. Lisa's artwork speaks for itself in terms of badassery and beauty. It's kind of what we're dedicated to here at Hex Comics. and we're super stoked to be able to share it with you.
Very much a cyberpunk experience.
Yeah.
Like you're definitely down in a, it's that Blade Runner element of this.
Totally.
Is the world that you're really exploring.
Yeah.
The people in them, the different classes of the people in them, and the struggles that they're obviously having on a day-to-day basis. They live under this corporatocracy, so there's a lot of heavy-handedness coming from the police. There's obviously a lot of discrimination coming from all sides. And, these are people who are just trying to find their way to some peace and some safety.
Yep. Do you want to add on?
Lisa, talk a little bit about the art.
Yeah, talk to us.
Yeah, I mean, like Lindley summed it up pretty well. It's kind of like a cyberpunk fantasy. When the idea of it first kind of came to me, it kind of went through a bunch of iterations, but by the time we made it, it was definitely kind of in that like neon fantasy feel. And it was what I wanted to draw. I wanted to draw like basically like futuristic Victoriana. And so I kind of made that dream come true by doing this. Yeah.
So good.
It's so good. Yeah. I mean, love it.
Amazing. Okay.
I just wanted to give one little tiny bit of context since we went out of order. I was going to say this as we got to these, but what you're seeing is previews of the first episodes of these series, and you're seeing a handful of them in the kind of tablet and widescreen format that they'll be presented in, and then you're seeing a couple of them, Hex 11 and Remind, which we'll get to next, in the mobile version. So just to make the point that these actually show up kind of in the proper format as you look at them. And again, we'll talk more about that over the weekend.
And if I may, Frank's not here, so Frank Calico's work on Darkland is amazing throughout, and really is just tells the story beautifully in hues of hell. So really very cool.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff.
All right. Let's get Jason Brubaker up and to talk about his series. It's called Remind. Jason, come on down.
All right. Welcome. Well, thanks for having me. So Remind is it's a kind of a sci-fi, I guess sci-fi fantasy. Starts out in this underwater. No, it doesn't start out underwater. It starts out above ground with this girl named Sonia who has this cat. Cat goes missing and suddenly shows up a couple weeks later, and he can talk and walk around on his hind feet, and it's really bizarre. And she starts learning about this underwater lizard world through this cat's perspective. And somehow he thinks that he was cursed by this god that was under the water and exiled from this kingdom. And she helps convince him that I don't think that's quite what happened. And by the way, I built this super suit for you to dive down underwater and go back to this kingdom and confront this god. And so it's definitely a fun journey through. I don't know. I think it has a lot to do with faith, and like there's brain transplantation in it. There's conspiracy type theory type stuff in it, loosely. And it's a complete story, and you can read it all on Macroverse. And I wrote it and I drew it. And it was nominated for an Eisner too. So thanks to Macroverse. Thanks to you guys. So yeah, that's my short pitch.
Amazing. Amazing. Great. Okay. And then of course, not last but not least, Eben and Adam, we're going to pitch DEADTOWN.
Well, you know what? Let's come back to Bushidos. I wish Jeremy could be here, but actually Adam wrote Bushidos as well. So let's talk about that and just kind of what the world is, and then if Jeremy can jump in, we can talk to him. Also, I'll give Jeremy some props to start with. He is the original creator of the Bushidos franchise, and what's unique in the case of Bushidos in this collection is that it actually did start as an NFT project, and then we partnered with him to build out this world and this universe of Bushidos. So Adam, do you want to talk a little bit about the world and kind of how this came together?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a PFP series launched, I think, in October last year. successful launch, and then they, like many series, many PFP projects, wanted to expand the story. Jeremy's original idea was very kind of simple. It was this sci-fi samurai concept set in this world full of portals to a world which had portals to myriad other worlds within it, and there were these warriors, these Bushido warriors protecting it. So that was the kind of his inception. And what we did, which was a lot of fun, was work for several months within the community, kind of basically initially teaching storytelling and then working out kind of what was the lore, what was the history of this world, how did it come to be, and then mapping out the kind of actual, ultimately 8-episode comic series that you're seeing the kind of preview of right now. I actually saw this put together for the first time yesterday, which is kind of exciting. And it's great. So it's in this world. It's kind of a parody of. It postulates the question of what would have happened if the English had shown up in America and actually just been absorbed into Native American society, and then worked to defeat the English who were then invading. That's kind of the concept, but set on a planetary level. And then 300 years later, the main kind of hegemony imperialist forces are trying to retake the planet. And so they're the Bushidos, the crack Bushidos unit are coming together, having to reunite the clans to fight off this new existential threat. But super cool, like I say, it's kind of cyberpunk vibe to it, but it is this combination of modern tech with classic kind of Japanese art and sensibility, and in a very much a coming of age stories following four young warriors as they become the leaders this planet needs. But it's great, and it's very much inspired by what is exciting is inspired by Jeremy's artwork and the community really coming together to build this thing from the ground up.
Yeah, it's very cool. And the artist on Bushidos is Nicholas Castell, who is also just awesome. Like one thing which I can't say enough is just how lucky we are to work with all the amazing artists that are represented here today, and those that aren't. Just incredible talents. And speaking of amazing artists, here's DEADTOWN. So I'll talk about this for a second, and then I would love Steven to talk about it as well. So DEADTOWN is really where a lot of Macroverse started. So it has some history to why we're all here to begin with. But this was an idea that I initially had, and then Adam and I kind of fleshed out together. Initially as a television pilot, and we there's a whole other story for another time that we're close to this moving forward on TV, and then it got literally killed by The Walking Dead, literally and pun intended. And so we repurposed it as a graphic novel series when we started to go down this road of making graphic novels. And the original concept was taking a bunch of these elements that we loved, and so film noir, really stylistically, intentionally film noir, zombies, private detectives, kind of Mad Max-ish, kind of a post-apocalyptic fantasy world, and mashing them all together. And so that was kind of the initial concept for this world. And we had the pilot, we had started working on a comic series, and then it kind of just went to the back burner for a little while until we met Steven. And when we met Steven and we worked on a different project together, it was just immediately clear, like, oh, if we can get this guy to sign on, this makes the series, because it's such a specific aesthetic and sensibility that we wanted to craft here, that like the visuals of it were just absolutely a necessity. And so when Steven showed up in our lives, we were like, this is time to make DEADTOWN. And here we are.
Great. Amazing stuff, guys. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so we're going to do a little kind of just conversation roundtable between everybody here. I'll try and point to people specifically so that we don't want everybody to talk on top of each other.
Hold on. Oh. Sorry, Casey. Steven. trying to pass the baton to you before we go to the roundtable.
Right on. Well, when you guys approached me to do DEADTOWN, it was really not a difficult sell with the, you know, the mashup between Mad Max and zombies and, you know, the third man noir and like, you know, that kind of stuff. It was all kind of music to my ears. And I don't know if you remember or not, but I was just like, this is exactly what I want to do. This genre, this mashup of genres, whatever you want to call it. It was just, and when you said it was black and white, I was like, perfect, because like I love working black and white. So I mean, really, it's like I think it's the perfect project for me to work on. It really plays to a lot of my strengths, I think. But I mean, you tell me. So
clearly, yeah,
yeah. And I mean, I could work on this. I mean, zombies, noir zombies. I could work on for the rest of my life. I could do that on this. So
that is music to our ears, just so you know. I mean, I don't know if that's what you wanted to sign up for, but we love it.
Totally.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right. Sorry, Casey.
No, that's great. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, Stephen. When you're not on the stage next to us, I'm like, there's another guy in the corner there. And I forgot you. Sorry about that. Okay, so I guess we'll start with I want to talk to like the creators here on stage who have actually come out in print already. So Hex 11 and Remind, I think you're the two that come out already. I love that sound. That's great. We're all on iPhone. This is live. There's definitely nothing. There's no editing going on here. You guys released books, paper versions already, and they're in the market already. What do you see as the benefits of? I know Evan and Adam will show a little bit more of what the actual app is going to look like tomorrow. But what do you guys like when they're pitching to you? What do you see as a kind of a storytelling? The benefits you're going to find in a more digital method rather than just a comic on paper.
Well, from the beginning, because we literally started Hex Comics with like $6. So and Lisa works digitally anyway. So we were going to make a digital comic, but we were no one from nowhere. So we needed print so we could go to these cons and have something that people could put their hands in and read and see, and then, want to come back for more. It was kind of like, it was basically advertisement for us. Here I am. Come on in. Scooch over. So the print thing was necessary for us from the beginning because it was really the only way we were going to be able to build a base and fans and create community or what have you. So that's what we did. And we basically, we were printing really small batches. It was not profitable at all, but it was advertising and it worked. And so with every show we did, we were putting out in the early, with volume 1, those first 6 issues, we were putting out a new issue like every 8 to 10 weeks. Like Lisa was just pumping them out. Mm-hmm. So our whole plan was we had like 9 shows lined up to do, and we had to have a new issue before each next show because we needed the money from that issue to buy the next round of issues. So print was essential for us, but then we always were digital. We got on Comixology right off the bat, and we were already kind of self-distributing from our Shopify store the digital issues. So when we still do print, we have we want to get through into volume 3, printing these last 3 issues, and then we'll just have the 3 volumes or what have you. But print is still like a huge part of our business. And it's nice because there's something about holding it in your hands, especially with Lisa's art. And because the world is so engaging that there's just something very tactile about the experience. But, I think
I'll say I'll just say that, like, for the digital end of things, that it's like, like Lindley said, I build the book digitally. And so it's always, it's kind of nice to just have it be in that form. Like the colors are so brilliant and in a way that they can't be printed. And my fellow artists, I'm sure, can also attest how frustrating it is when you print something that you made on the computer. But also, as far as digital distribution, it's a matter of reach. Mm-hmm. the print stuff is great for meeting people face to face and, getting people like kind of involved in the organic world. But, it's fairly obvious. So much of life happens digitally now. It all exists on the digital
And we've got like
landscape.
70,000 readers worldwide, and we obviously would not have that without digital. I mean,
Yeah.
we leveraged every single one of those tools as they've come available to us, and it's been obviously beneficial.
Yeah.
And it is nice to not have to bother with it either, because the printing is hassles, and we talk about it all the time. Because
Yeah.
it's like,
Right.
no matter
Yeah.
how hard, first of all, vendor relationships are hugely important. Like, to build a relationship with someone so that you trust them and that you're not having to explain yourself and over again or whatever. And even with an expert person like myself at the helm of these kinds of logistical problems, you would, it is shocking how many times you get what you ordered and you're like, dude, there's no UV on this.
Oh my God.
Why'd you ship me a whole box of books I can't sell?
Well, and let us not forget the New York Comic-Con experience.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
God.
When the colors weren't right, I had to chew that guy's ass out. It's like, and so that's one thing that's nice about digital. You don't have to worry about these issues. But at the same time, it makes you feel like you're doing something real. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Jason, how about you?
Yeah.
Your book came out, Eisner Award nominated. How are you doing the transition from that to digital?
Yeah, well, my vision was always to have a physical book because I liked collecting the books. But it became apparent early on, this is like 2009, that digital was the way to market things. So I could go to a convention and sell, really push it and spend $4,000 on a big booth. But then I would just go online the next day and I would launch a Kickstarter and make way more money and sell more books and get more eyeballs. And so the digital side of it is really just exposure and reach and being able to contact everybody at the same time. And then the physical books are more for the like insane collectors who just really want to have it on their bookshelf. And that's me, that's what I do to the artists that I really love, is I want the physical thing. But which is so nice about the whole NFT side of things. It's kind of bridging that gap a little bit. Yeah. And so I'm really excited to see what that's going to do, but there's still the physical side of it that's very attractive to me. I mean, I wish I could show you all the physical things I have that, like a digital version of this just doesn't compete with holding it in my hands,
Amazing.
right?
Amazing.
about that,
So-
about that 3D world.
Yeah. So yeah, the books are always the goal. Even when I like do a little quick issue just for fun, I'll still print it just so I can have it, just so I can open it up and see what it really feels like. And I don't really do very many comic conventions anymore. I haven't for a long time, but it's still a big part of the reason I make comics. It's because there's something about it. Like there's the nostalgia of comic books and nice hardcover books.
Sure.
So
I think we're all like that, though. That's not not just you. Don't worry, Jason. You're not the only one in that mind.
Yeah. But digital is just a must. It's a must. You have to go digital as well. If you're going to do physical, I think. Anyway.
We have a lot of fans who are like, I demand it. Like,
Yeah.
I need to have
Yeah.
all of the individual issues of, volume 2. I need to have those, because we
Mhm.
tried, especially during COVID when things got tight. We were like, maybe we just do digital releases now. And the people were like, no, we'll pay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We'll just pay for
Exactly.
them. We'll just print as many as we need, and then we'll just pay for that. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had, my comics have had millions and millions of views. When Remind was on its own website, it had, I don't know, at the height it had millions. I don't remember, but it's down now because it got hacked, right? So you can't do that with a book. It got hacked and all this spam junk, so I just turned it all off. So that's why I like Macroverse being here, is because now it can belong on a new platform. But even with even at selling a ton of books and being very successful as an indie publisher, maybe selling 5,000 copies of a book, it's still nothing compared to those million readers or millions of readers that can actually just get it digitally, who will never actually translate to a physical buyer of your book, and that's fine. Everyone has their own method of reading. So give them what they want, right?
Right.
Jeremy, it's good to see you back here again. You made it back to the stream.
Apologies, lots of technical difficulties over here.
It's okay. Adam picked up the slack and introduced Bushidos to us, but you were coming from a bit of a different angle. You are actually launched as a successful NFT collection already, and now you're coming into the comic book world. Maybe just introduce yourself as well, since I haven't seen you yet, and talk a little bit about how you're coming into the Macroverse with your NFT collection.
Yeah, again, apologies. I was having technical difficulties, but my name's Jeremy Booth. A little bit of background about me. I've been a commercial illustrator and editorial illustrator for about 10 years now. I don't really have any experience in the comic world, and I've been in the NFT space since February of 21, kind of started releasing single edition artworks then. Had a successful couple months and then took a break off for the summer. I knew I wanted to come back into the space that fall, and I thought, it'd be really cool to do an NFT project, and kind of onboard hopefully at that time, a pretty big community all at once. I also had the idea and wanted to I didn't want it to just be kind of like a face value, like, oh, here's artwork, here's a theme, but I had this idea of I really feel like it'd be kind of really positive and valuable if I could kind of create broadly a story behind, the PFP project. So Bushidos was birthed, the samurai sci-fi themed project. And I kind of had this general idea of a story behind them and that sort of thing. And so I released the project. We minted. It was a pretty big success in October of last year. And then immediately after we launched, the end of October, I think I knew from the very get-go that I really feel like this story should be told in comic form. And so in my lack of experience, I'm like, I don't have any sort of experience in comic production, writing, art, in that context, etc. So we minted and then immediately was like, well, we need to find a partner, someone who can really kind of help establish and partner with us and work alongside us to create this comic. And so I think in November, we reached out to Macroverse, and that started our conversation. And we became partners and started in January to, we kind of created this, I guess in January, we brought the community together to kind of start forming the basic pillars of the story, creating the lore, and then we went into the community began writing or pitching rather different stories for the anthology series. So, and then we've been in production for a while now, I guess since January, technically from the very early stages. So we're releasing the main storyline this fall, which we're really excited about. And I guess last week I made it official that we are now full partners with Macroverse. So we are a part of the Macroverse family, and we're really excited to partner with them and be along for the ride and continue to keep building this world that we've established. So
amazing. So Eben, you told us a little bit about the DEADTOWN. Steven is the artist. Adam, you're working on it too. Can you guys talk about how the transition from screenplay to comic book works, and how the three of you guys work together to produce this?
Yes. So it's interesting because we wrote this this pilot script, TV pilot, and once we knew that was not moving forward as a TV pilot, part of my soapbox for a long time, going all the way back to this time, was kind of looking at building these worlds or these franchises not just as a single story that was going to be the only expression of this thing, but what people used to call transmedia or multi-platform, where thinking about what piece of the story is the comic, the movie, the TV show, the game, those sorts of things. So that's always been kind of my mental model for how to build these things as bigger franchises. And, you know, people used to kind of like stare at me and go like, what are you talking about? And now the world's kind of caught up to that idea. But, you know, I don't think, you know, the term I now think of it in is now no longer transmedia or multi-platform, because platforms really don't matter anymore. We have screens in front of us all the time. So it's really thinking about multi-format. What are the different experiences that we can offer people in this universe? And so once we knew we were not doing the TV show, we reconceptualized DEADTOWN, still in this context of, you know, these different formats. And so there is still a 5-season television show that is planned and outlined, and we kind of know what that is. And this graphic novel story, the comic story, is not that story. It's not an adaptation of that story. It's, you know, uses some of the same characters, it deals with some of the same themes and ideas, but it's its own thing that's really designed to be expressed best as a comic or a graphic novel. And in this case, expressed best in this tap story format that we've developed. And so Stephen, you know, I'll hand it off to Stephen, and then Adam can jump in here too. You know, I think the magic of what we've been able to do with Stephen, and really the thrill of it, is, you know, we've been partners in figuring this out. Like, we've spent a lot of time, we've spent actually years at this point figuring out how we think this kind of natively digital tap story format works, and kind of what are the fundamentals of the storytelling. You know, not only is Stephen the artist for DEADTOWN, but he's also our senior content from the Macroverse side. So he touches just about every series that comes through our pipeline. And so he's really been my partner and our partner in figuring this out from day one of, you know, how does this work? You know, and Stephen's a graphic novelist prior to this with, you know, published work with, you know, many publishers. And so, you know, it's like we've been able to kind of come to it from this point of view of really saying we want this to be true to the art form of comics. We're not trying to turn comics into something that comics were never meant to be, like multimedia or animation or, you know, something else. We've seen all those experiments, but really, how do we keep it true to the art form, but evolve the art form where it's a digitally native experience? And I'll hand off momentarily. I promise I'll shut up. But to Jason and you know, Kelly Sue and you know, the Hex team's point, you know, we think that this is not a world where it has to be digital or print, or, you know, or now collectible or digital, that these things can all coexist. And that, back to that initial thesis, it's different experiences in these different formats. And so rather than throwing a PDF on an iPad, which I think is an inelegant experience, we can now create this natively digital, you know, thing that's been really crafted for this digital experience. And the print version can still exist. And now when you pick up that print book, not only is it this beautiful collectible edition, but it's actually a new tailor-made experience of the material for print, for your phone, for your tablet, for the web. So it's like we get to kind of give people the optimized version no matter where they run into it. I will now shut up.
Yeah, and I mean, figuring out the format has been, I mean, it's been frustrating at times, but mostly it's just been really, I don't know, like exciting and fun, and a lot of trial and error, and certain things that work for one series might not work for the other. But the actual format of tapping through, coming from comic books, it has a lot of the advantages of comic books with panel-to-panel progressions, but it also prevents people from kind of peeking forward or having something spoiled by kind of seeing what happens in the next panel, or if the page, you know, something big happens on page, you know, 3 and you're on page 2, you kind of see it, you know, and you can really control the reading experience with this format in a way that you can't in comics. And you can also control the way time works in a weird way. Like, you can stretch moments out by having them be multiple taps. You can compress things. You have a lot more tools in your toolbox for telling a story using the raw materials of comics. So kind of figuring that out from scratch, not just for tablet, but also for phone. It's been a fun challenge, but I mean, more fun than challenge, you know? So yeah, it's been really coming from comics, it's been like a whole new, like I said, toolbox to work with, and sometimes you're making up your own tool sets. So,
Yeah.
I don't know, like I don't know, like if it's hard to write for that, Adam, but you know, interpreting the art for a script, there's so much freedom as the artist or the person putting together the book that, or the episode, that I don't know, it never gets boring, it never gets old. So
always new things to solve for, which we keep bumping up against in the best, I'd say in the best way.
Yeah. And
yeah.
on top of that, there's two different ways it can go. Like, some of the projects we're doing were previously comic books that we have a limited amount of assets for to translate into this new format. Whereas something like DEADTOWN or really any project that's specifically for the Macroverse format, you can make new stuff up on the fly. You need a shot to insert to make this sequence work. Or, you know, if you have the Photoshop files in layers, you can then do fun things with the Z-axis, or you know what I mean, the quasi animation where something moves across an environment when really it's the same asset just manipulated. I mean, it's a lot of freedom when you're doing it, you know, from scratch. But if you're adapting, you still have a lot of, you know, leeway for how you present the story for the format. So I don't know, like not to blather on, but it's a really fun format to create for.
Yeah, I was just gonna say our goal is to have it where you can't tell which things were adapted and which things are original. Like, that's always the intent, and I think, you know, generally it works, you know, pretty well in that context.
Adam, do you want to add to that?
No, I mean, you know, I think it's been interesting. We've now written a couple things, so I think there's been the writing for DEADTOWN, which is explicitly for this tab format. So it is, you know, it's multiple panels, and we're talking about A, B, C, and D panels as we're writing, and we're lots more dialogue that we're fitting in, because that's the other thing we can play with is real kind of verbal exchanges between people, which is fantastic. But it's been interesting, and Jeremy, I'd love your take on what the Bushidos, being kind of seeing Bushidos come together as a comic series, where it's been a bit of a hybrid because it's been written more for a tablet format screen. It's more written for a printed page. However, there'll be moments in there where it's like, oh, well, you know, note to the artist, note to this, we can add this bit of dialogue, we can add another image, we can, you know, so we'll be able to, we can work towards both. And so I feel like Bushidos is kind of this interesting hybrid between those things. And yeah, Jeremy, I'm not sure if how it has been kind of reading those scripts and then seeing that come to life for you.
Yeah, I would say I think it's pretty interesting. I think from what I've seen, what you all are able to do with this, I would say technology in a lot of ways, is what I would probably call it. I think it's pretty fascinating. I think it's going to be really interesting to see it when it fully is played out. I'm really excited about it. I guess I don't have a ton to say. I mean, I think it's been a great experience. I just can't wait to see it, like, fully, I guess. Yeah.
Woohoo. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the future of comics in this Web3 format. I think this is a big discussion, and I want to get a kind of a take from each of you where you see it going. So each week on the Hyper Room, I interview different creators that are working in different aspects of entertainment and how they're connected to Web3. A lot of people, of course, are working in comics. There's people working on animation. There's people working on games. A lot of these things are happening. There's always a focus on comics because, as we all know, I mean, it's a labor for sure of producing a comic, but it's a smaller team. It's faster to get out than, say, a video game or a movie or an animation. So we'll leave it like that. But you know, this move into Web3, you know, right now as we're doing this online Web3 Comic Con, there is an actual physical Comic Con happening in New York City at the same time, where there's hundreds of thousands of people buying the physical books, and hopefully there's some NFT drops happening at the same time. I know there's a lot of NFT holder activity going on there, but I want to know, maybe start with the Hex 11 team. You know, what are you looking at getting? What are you looking to see, you know, evolve for the storytelling possibilities, the readership? the reach of Hex 11 as it goes into more of a Web3 than a traditional print distribution method?
Wow.
Those are good questions.
Yeah.
We are in many ways progressive, yes, but we are also in a lot of ways analog women in a digital world.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a tangible nature to the way that we create and to the way that we run this business.
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't spent, to be honest with you, a ton of time thinking outside of what we're currently like. We're just still trying to crack the code of getting all these books built, like we're trying to solve the problem that's like right in front of our face. So what we have benefited from, though, especially like with, when Eben and Adam came to us with Macroverse, we were like, oh, awesome, because we are open. It's just that we only have so much bandwidth, as far as innovating is concerned, like innovating the business of our business. Mm-hmm. So when Macroverse came along, we're like, oh, well, this is great. And that the technology that they're using and the process in which they're doing it is super high quality. So we didn't have, we were like, awesome, this is what we need. But we're all about finding partnerships that work because we don't have the resources financially or really. Kelly Sue and I both have kids, we're all over here trying to like pay the rent. There's just a lot of stuff going on. And so when someone like Macroverse shows up with a tool, we'll certainly take the time to evaluate it. And if it works, it's like, well, awesome. Yeah. Let's do this then. But we are in a sense dependent on, that platform and whatever those people are providing us. We're not out here deciding like, well, why don't we go build our own thing? It's like, who the hell's got time for that? Not these three,
What I think is cool too about Web3, and I cannot speak about it with like any authority at all, aside from what I have learned from Eben, bless his heart, for holding our hands and explaining to us what's going on.
At some point I became my mother. I'm not sure when it was.
I think it's really cool because, regardless of what form it takes, the way that stories are told and shared, it's going to evolve into something that's going to be similar to Web3, if not Web3. And it's a really wonderful experience to be in as a creator, to have a community of people who want even more access to your stories, even more opportunities to engage with it in exciting ways, in expansive ways, and especially in ways where they can connect with each other. And I think that's what's so exciting about the Web3 type of community that Macroverse is bringing to the table, where it isn't just about let's make these digital pieces that we can sell out into the ether, as wonderful as that is. It's also a community building tool. Mm-hmm. And I think with stories like these, especially cyberpunk stories or fantasy stories, certainly zombie stories, that fan base wants to connect with each other.
They do. They want to live in that world.
Yeah. And this is it's an exciting opportunity to do that.
I think you guys understand it very well. That's great. Don't sell yourselves short on that.
You understand the point of it. It's less about how does it work, and it's more about why are we doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. We're definitely like, why don't you guys figure that out and give us a call?
Tell us when it's time to press a button and do a talk. Yeah. Do you have anything that you want to add to that?
No, to me it's about community. It's about family.
It's about family.
And that's really what storytelling is. It's about creating community. It's about creating bonds with people. Mm-hmm. And so so you say the word community and I'm like, let me in there.
Let me in there.
Yes, definitely.
I would also agree with that. I think actually what we're doing is it doesn't sound innovative because it's just storytelling, but coming from just like a traditional like PFP project with the intent of storytelling in mind, like when we first started, like no one really had this idea of like, well, how do we expand? How do we go from just like, okay, here's art, here's a generative project, like, and so I think in a lot of ways, a lot of people are like trying to catch up now and like kind of reverse their their situation and kind of go back and like build a story from what they've already, developed. And so in a lot of ways, we're kind of innovating, I think, right here, right now, because, for me personally, I had it in mind, although I don't have a lot of experience in it. And so that's why it's a perfect marriage between Macroverse and I. But, listening to your all's stories and stuff like that, it sounds like you've been kind of writing stories for a long time. And so you're able to kind of leverage technology now to kind of chart new territories. And I think that's innovation. So.
Yeah. Well, when we first launched out too, because we built a Shopify store instead of like a traditional website, and then we could get a fetch plugin, so that we could then digitally distribute our issues. And that was just us looking for the technology we needed to solve that problem, because we weren't, again, and it was $10 a month to do that, to send as many we could send thousands and thousands and thousands of digital digital books out to people. So we went looking to leverage technology and any of the modern tools that were on the, that were available to us now, and we talk about it a lot on panels and things, that there's never been a time where the artist is more in control and has more potential to be in control of their IP and to make content. Then it's all in our hands, and it's free. Obviously you got to buy a computer. That's not free, but it is in the sense that once you get in your house and you get connected to the internet, the whole world now is your distribution center. And so we definitely have never been shy about leveraging technology and finding ways to solve our problems, because we had to.
And to Jeremy's point, storytelling has become an exercise in innovating because of the digital world that we live in. It's kind of not enough to just have a blog without images anymore. Not that
or an image without a blog.
Nobody's going to make time for that.
Exactly. Time with that content.
Not when you can stream any possible thing on your phone.
Yeah, exactly. Out there competing with TikTok. Come on.
Oh man.
Competing with TikTok. It's cat videos, man.
Jason, over to you. Same question. Your understanding and your what do you see for your book in Web3, and how do you think it'll help, or how do you think it'll be, define what you're doing going forward from here?
I'm really excited about it, because when I first started putting stuff online, it was, I think, 2009, and it was a blog, and it was, WordPress, I guess. And that's the one that got hacked and corrupted. And so all the comments and the interactions with the fans, which were really valuable. And it was a real nice little history of my progress of making the comic. It's all gone now. And it's kind of frustrating. And I never really knew where to go since then. I've tried Webtoons, but I couldn't really connect with the comments there, because it wasn't really about my comic. It was more about Webtoons. And I tried, there's a lot of different sources and places where I went to try different comics, because I've published multiple comics since. And then when Eben and Adam came to me with Macroverse, it's been like 3 years ago now or something. It was kind of like, I hope this works. But what's been really great is it's just formed into this thing that gives me all the tools that I've been trying to build on my own for years and years. I tried to make my own app, and it was just it was really hard. So to have you guys be able to make this stuff and be super dedicated to it, and incorporate all this cutting edge technology that I would be afraid to even dabble in yet, like all the NFTs and the blockchain stuff. But I want to, but it's at this point, I'm trying to just get the next book done. And so it's not just a hobby that I'm dabbling with all these different things. Now it's the book's the priority. And so having a place like Macroverse where I could just upload stuff, there can be a community, there can be NFTs, there could be digital sales, there could be a home base for all my projects. It's really helpful. And I think going forward, I love the idea of, it's kind of like what I was doing with the webcomic, where the webcomic, I would release one page a week, and then I'd get interactions and feedback from fans, which was great. It was like they were my editors, right? Now I'm thinking I would like to go forward with like actual releasing like so many pages, like a chapter, 20 pages at a time, what would be considered 20 pages in a book. And then getting that same interaction, the feedback and all that stuff, because that's so valuable to me as an independent author and artist, is getting that fan feedback before it goes to print. Right. Once I go to print, then it's like, oh, well, I guess I got to reprint if I want to change these mistakes. And so I just love the platform in that sense that it's a place where everyone can come to. There's fan interaction, which I'm really excited to see what happens with that side of it going forward with the, stuff that's coming up. But anyway, yeah, so those are some of my thoughts and the things I'm excited about, because it's hard to do it on your own. You can only do so many things on your own.
What?
You've done Kickstarter as well, right, Jason? So, because that's kind of a similar kind of thing that we're working towards in Web3. You've got, tiers. You've got community based around it. The people are funding you ahead of time. If this goes forward and it becomes successful, like how do you navigate something like a Kickstarter with something like Web3 and, what the fans are going to be, chasing you for, right? Because, Kickstarter, at the end of the day, you're kind of done when you send the book out. But Web3, you're going to always be on for all the time, right?
I don't quite know how that side of it's going to work. I do still love and embrace the Kickstarter model. I have a Kickstarter running right now, and it's where, a lot of my funding for my next projects comes from. And so the idea of having a digital side of that kind of same business model with Web3 it's so much better because you can reach so many more people. Kickstarter can only reach a fraction of those people. And so so I think it's exciting to see how that can translate over to that kind of same model to a digital product with collectability now.
Can I add a little bit to that?
Please.
Yes. My experience. Yeah, it was sort of. It was kind of like that for us. I mean, we released BUSHIDOS as 8,888 different generative artworks. But that allowed us to, and so with that, we had a roadmap and things that we were wanting to pursue, and if we sold 25%, we were going to do this, 50% this, 75% that, and 100% this. And so in a lot of ways, we were able to kind of leverage it. I didn't really think about it till now as like a Kickstarter, if you will. And so with hopes that we would use that capital, we'd allocate, percentage of that capital to keep building and going forward. And so something to think about for you as well is like, maybe there's some art pieces that are derived from, the story that you're telling or whatever. And you wanted to release like an edition or a generative project or whatever. And by doing that and selling that would then help fund, your next series or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. That's actually something we have in the works. So I'm glad we're going that direction.
Yeah. Indeed. Prognosticating, reading the tea leaves there, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't step on your toes.
No.
I'd love to talk to you more.
Spoiler alert.
I'm putting myself in the spotlight for just a second because I think the key thing, for me. So my background, for anyone that doesn't know, like I started as an illustrator. I've been, making all kinds of different media for the last 25 years. And Adam and I working on a bunch of this stuff. We co-founded Macroverse, over 2 years ago now. And it's been the last year in Web3 where, we've really been excited about this, building towards this, and now kind of coming to this moment where really everything we've been thinking about is getting very close to releasing. And again, we'll talk more about that tomorrow. But the key thing for me is, the economics, and you've heard, people talk about this in this panel, where the economics of traditional comics, like you can only make comics because you love making comics. Like traditionally, that is the reason that people make comics. So, it's like you have to make comics. You need to make comics. Like this is the expression of this idea, or it's something that you do, kind of on the side. Like those are generally the models, unless you're, that 1 in a million, Robert Kirkman success, or, you're working at Marvel or DC, but like indie comics is incredibly challenging. And so my hat is way off to everyone here and everyone that does that. And I think that a big part of what we're really here for is to try to change that model where there are new outlets, new opportunities, new ways to engage with the people that are going to support and become fans of these universes, these worlds that we care so much about, that are literally our, in some ways our children out there in the world, for other people to come and, play with and to, understand what we're trying to accomplish here. And so, for me, like, when we talk about with Lisa and Kelly Sue and Lindley and Jason and, you guys who are coming into this world, I am such a fan of yours. That's the reason that we're, here to begin with. It's the reason that we, connected in the first place. Like, I want to see these things get massive. Like, that is a huge motivating factor for me, quite honestly. And so, like, this is a challenge to everyone out there that, may decide to collect these initial digital editions of the comics. We need to make these massively successful. We need to demonstrate to the rest of the industry that, this is a new model that can live with print and, other forms of digital distribution, that, this is a path to success on a scale that may have not been possible without this new opportunity, without this new technology, without this ability to build and activate a community in a way where they get to participate and partake in new ways in the success of these things getting bigger and bigger. So it's a huge motivator for me to, have all of us demonstrate this as a new opportunity for creators, for independent creators, and for independent creators that are doing work that is as good or better than anything else that exists in the world. So I am super excited about what we've built, but I'm more excited about being able to use those tools to make this something really meaningful for all of you and all of us collectively, and to kind of blaze this trail for the next generation of creators to come in behind all of you. That is my speech.
Okay, let's go to Adam and Steven then on the rest of that. Just want to talk to you guys. Adam, I already heard your feedback on it, but the Web3 model for comics going forward, like, what do you see DEADTOWN's place in it, and how does Steven work with you to kind of like develop that strategy going forward? We're talking about bringing communities in to help storytelling, helping ownership of characters and things like that. Talk a little bit about that for the audience.
Yeah, I think that is it's obviously very much directly how we met Jeremy, and I know we've had now these conversations that not leaking a little bit of prescience with Jason, and obviously we're talking with the Hex 11 team about how to kind of fit some of this stuff in. I think the exciting thing about the character side of things, specifically the kind of profile picture, the characters that anyone can buy and own from within one of these story worlds, is then that ability for anyone who has a spark of creativity, who aspires to tell stories in any way, shape, or form. They have a kind of foundation upon which to build, and some of the structure around which to set their characters and tell a story and do these things. And I think it can often be the kind of world building and the establishment of those rules that is the intimidating part about telling stories in some ways. And so I think once you lay this groundwork and you establish these kind of guidelines, I think it opens the gates for people who want to tell a short story, have a cool idea for a character, whatever that might be. It's like, great, now I can take this and I can put this in this existing world and know that it'll function within these rules, within this environment. And I think that is unique in this space, and is one of the most exciting things about it. I really do. We've seen the enthusiasm within our own community, certainly within Jeremy's community, within a GSA, another team we've been working with, like the very, very genuine excitement from people getting to tell stories and learning how to tell effective stories is just incredible. It's just great to see and great to be a part of.
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
You're on stage now.
Yeah. Level had. You guys have all said it so well. One of the coolest things, just in figuring all this out was the zombie avatar thing we did and are currently doing, where you build your own zombie and figuring out how to give people the tools to do that. And you can choose, from all of these ears and all of these eyes and all of these noses and hollowed out eye sockets and whatever else. And then taking that and being able to write your own story within the world of DEADTOWN in this case. I don't know. It's just something that didn't exist before. And it's just so cool and so interactive. And it's so community based, like the Hex 11 team was talking about, like the community and the interaction and making the reader part of the actual universe that they're reading. It's just such a cool technology. I don't really have a whole lot to add other than that, but that's kind of what sprung to mind after what Adam was saying. So
that's great.
Great.
Yeah, that's actually what I wanted to kind of swing around to there. I guess as the last question was about community. I know Jeremy started a community with BUSHIDOS, and I want to know, like, how important is the community going to be going forward in developing Web3 comics?
Oh man, that's I think community is everything in this space. I think in order to really thrive, you have to have one. I mean, it's been kind of the pillar of our project from the very beginning. We wouldn't be where we are without the community. I will say it can be challenging as a founder because some people in communities can be really relentless, very mean. But on the other flip side of that, there are some great people that I've met through this community that we've built through BUSHIDOS, and I'm really thankful for. So I think moving forward, it's imperative that you always keep them in mind. And I will say it's been also a pillar of the story behind BUSHIDOS. The story of what we're building wouldn't be what it is without their help. So, I mean, for 2 months, we met in our community with Macroverse like once a week. And each week we had a theme of what we're discussing, whether it be like the world that they live in or the antagonists within the story, the main characters, whatever. And we literally just fleshed it out. Everyone was pitching in ideas and it was a good time. And honestly, it's been imperative and important for us. One, because the community is important, but two, the story wouldn't be as strong as it is without their help. So
100%. Yeah.
Interesting. Jason,
I think that's the unique thing as well. I think if people can embrace that, projects can embrace that, I think it's going to be really interesting and really valuable for storytelling for projects moving forward. Especially people on the outside. I think it's just very unique.
Yeah, I totally get it. But Jason, I want to ask that same question to you because, you are obviously in your room there in your studio developing your comics independently. And now we're because when we say communities, we mean fans, but we also mean it in different ways. Communities in like a BUSHIDOS NFT collection sense may be different than your immediate fan base who've been reading and watching your work every day going forward. How do you see this affecting your creative process going forward? Having communities working with you, do you want their input? Who Stephen was saying? Was it Stephen? He said, or somebody was saying, having the fans as your editor. Or was that you? Somebody said that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that doesn't sound good.
That sounds like a nightmare.
The good thing about having your own company is you can take or leave the editing advice, right? So the thing I really enjoyed about when I put Remind online, and it was a very interactive thing. I mean, it was a story I wanted to tell, but I started acquiring friends and fans that wanted the same goals that I wanted. So their suggestions started making more and more sense the more people got to know me and I got to know them. And there's obviously some bad apples where they just hate everything you do. So you just ignore that stuff. And but it's nice to find your core group of people who want the same thing you want. Because you can kind of trust that advice. And obviously there's different skill levels with different people. So someone who's like a designer for a living giving me a design advice is pretty solid, right? But someone who can't design worth anything, it might just be an opinion that they have. It doesn't feel right, and so you can take that into consideration too. Maybe it's not translating over, like this idea isn't translating over just because this person doesn't get it, right? And so it's not their fault. It's like it's my fault for not executing it in a way that makes sense. So that's definitely in the world of me trying to tell my own stories and getting people around me to help. There's the other side of it, which is having kind of a fan-driven community that starts telling stories within the universe that I've created, which is a whole nother thing for me. It's happened a little bit with Remind, with when I called people to do guest comics. There was a couple people who wrote stories and got other people involved, and it ended up being a 15-page story or something for Remind that worked perfectly within that world, because again, they knew what my world was. So going forward, I am really curious to see what can come of that if those kind of tools are provided for my fans and the community. So I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but I'm eager to see what's going to happen with it.
Down for the rest.
I think that's a good answer. Eben and Adam, and Steve, we lost two of the creative teams, so we're gonna kind of go through these last things. I want to know from you guys. You've onboarded these amazing creators into Macroverse. If there's some creators watching this stream right now, like, what do you recommend they kind of do now? Are they, like, everybody seems here to me, it sounds like everybody's still doing it as they normally do it. They haven't actually changed a lot of their process of creating, like, say, paper comic to your format. But what do you recommend people who are watching this who want to get into like Web3 comics and maybe work with Macroverse or do it by themselves, kind of thing?
Yeah. Adam, you want to say anything about that?
Evan, go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So, I think the thing I would say to creators is, number one, we have spent a lot of time trying to figure out, and I think we have figured out largely kind of the different ways of applying at least our methodology to how people make comics. So, there's a spectrum of kind of how we work with the creators that we work with. And, you heard a lot of that spectrum today. So, on one side, you've got Jason and, Hex 11 and, their team is still working pretty much the way they normally would for print. And then we're taking those files and those assets and adapting them on our end, often with some feedback from them, as we bring it into our, tap story format. And again, what I love about that is you get these two distinct experiences of the material. So it almost feels like a new thing when you pick up the print book versus seeing it, on the platform and in our format. We've got something like the BUSHIDOS team and Nicholas on the art there, where he knows it's going into this tap story format. So there are places in that process where he's still working fundamentally the way he's kind of normally comfortable making comics, but he's working digitally. He's building in some extra layers and some extra elements where we need them. He knows that there may be times where we go back to him and say, like, hey, we're putting this sequence together. It would be awesome if we had an extra expression for this character or an extra pose, that happened in this particular sequence. And so that's another way of working where it's like, you just do what you do, and then we'll ask you for some specific things if we need them as we find that, in the building of the episodes. We've got something with DARKLAND, which actually Frank, who did the art for DARKLAND, he brought a whole new approach to it, which is he really created a bunch of libraries of assets, which was pretty interesting. So he really, kind of took a little more of an animation approach where it was like, here's all the main characters, here's a bunch of different poses for these characters, a bunch of different expressions for these characters. And then he built a lot of the sequences with those assets and then fleshed them out and continue to add more to them for special moments or sequences or whatever. So he brought that into the mix, and I don't think I would have thought of that. So it's like, okay, great. Now we've got another way of approaching this for creators. And then there's what Steven is doing, which is just really has become such a master of this format where, he's thinking about it from moment one as he's creating the art, how these sequences are going to play out. And I think, he didn't bring it up, but I'll toot the horn for him. We have a DEADTOWN anthology series, which is coming out next year, which is all stories from holders of the collection of these DEADTOWN zombies that did. And the secret surprise, which I'm going to spoil here, is that Steven is doing one of the stories in that anthology. And Steven is not only an incredible artist, he's also quite a good writer. And so he's writing and drawing this story set in DEADTOWN. And seeing that come to life, talk about someone who has mastered a new thing. He's doing stuff with this format, which is mind-blowing. So when people see that, I think it's going to be like, oh, that's how this works. And so you got that whole spectrum of how to play with this, and we work with every creator that we work with to help them find the place that they're most comfortable. And then quite honestly, I like to nudge people along, going look at what we can do if you start to really embrace this and play along these lines. As far as the Web3 comics component of it, we're going to talk a lot more about this at 11 o'clock Pacific time tomorrow. But we really think about everything we make as being purpose built for the thing. So the thing that I don't like is what would be called skeuomorphic design, or an approach to things where it's you're taking an analog thing and trying to make it digital. And that's what we've mostly seen, not just in NFTs, but in digital comics. Is it's a PDF on an iPad, it's a web page that you're scrolling, and there are some interesting things that you can do with that, but it's not thinking about what are the strengths of this medium. And so that's where the TAP story came from. What can you uniquely do in a digital format that you can't do in a print format? How do you take new tools and put them in the toolbox as a creator? That was all the thinking behind the format itself. And we've applied a lot of that same thinking to the expression of this as an NFT project, where these collectible editions that we're going to show are not anything you've seen before. It is not a PDF that then, gets you a link to download. Sorry, it's not a cover of an NFT that gets you a link to download a PDF. The whole experience is one thing. It's all custom crafted so that this is just like having a graphic novel. You can buy, sell, and trade the entire thing inside an NFT. So for the first time, collectible digital comics exist. And that's the thing that we've been, pushing for the past year. And it's the thing we're so excited to show off tomorrow, and will be released out into the wild, over the next month or so with this first collection. There are 40 more series that are in some stage of development coming behind this, and more coming behind that. So if you are a creator, to finally answer your question, Casey, if you are a creator out there and you're NFT curious, or you're Web3 curious, or frankly, if you're an NFT massive skeptic, I actually love to have that conversation. I want to understand more about why people are resistant to this, technology. I understand the kind of the headlines around scams and all that stuff, but this is a platform, a new technology that is here to empower creators to make the stuff that they want to make. At least that is certainly the way that we are approaching it. And so if you're someone out there that's making comics, especially, I love to have those conversations. Would love to talk to you no matter where you fall on that spectrum. The one thing I will say is, everything we do has to be incredibly high quality. You can see it from the people that are here today. We keep the bar very, very high. But if you think you're making great stuff, we want to see it. And if you don't want to show it to us, we encourage you to explore and make it anyway.
Awesome. I think that's a great place to leave it. I think we're gonna do a round robin now of where to follow everybody on their social media. Maybe Jeremy, you can start off. Where do we find you on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you might be?
Yeah, as far as Bushidos go, we're Bushidos at Bushidos NFT, and that's both on Instagram and Twitter. And then my personal account is at Jeremy Booth on both Instagram and Twitter.
Great. Jason?
All right. Mainly, I guess YouTube would be a big one for me. If you just type in Jason Brubaker or Coffee Table Comics. in the YouTube search, you'll be able to find my channel. And then there's also coffeetablecomics.com, which is my website, which kind of shows off all my stuff. It's my business card.
I hate to tell you, but you'll be on Twitter very soon.
I am on Twitter, but I never promote it.
You're gonna be on it. Don't worry.
Because I just don't.
That's
use
going to
it very
change
much.
very soon.
Maybe, yeah.
How about you, Steven? Where can we find you?
The best place to find me would be on Instagram, actually, at Stephen Perkins Art, Stephen with a V. I am on Twitter, but I rarely use it. I kind of avoid Twitter. But that's at S Perkins. So, yeah, I would say Instagram's your best bet for me.
Great. Visual, very visual. Yeah, makes sense. Adam, how about you?
Personal IG is just at AdamDPM, and then I'm Macroverse Adam on Twitter.
And finally, Eben. I'm sure you've said this a million times already, but here's one more.
I haven't actually, but generally I am Ebenverse just about everywhere, and Macroverse HQ for most of the Macroverse socials. I am definitely the most active on Twitter at this point, which would not have been true 2 years ago, but is absolutely true
Right.
now.
Same.
Right. I personally love Twitter. I've loved it before the whole NFT craze thing. I find it very easy to communicate with people. And also it's great because it's very concise. It used to be even less characters before. And, you get your message, your joke, or your thing out very quickly. If you want to hear me talk to more creators in the Web3 entertainment space, you can follow me on at the Hyperroom on Twitter or thehyperroom.com. That's where I post all the new episodes. It's a Substack. So you can subscribe to it and get all the new episodes sent to you today. Eben, Steven, Jason, Jeremy, thank you so much for your time. The Hex 11 ladies. Who else was on here? There's so many
Edwin was here at the beginning. Yep.
So many people on this panel. It's been great to hear so much about what you guys are building. And I guess tomorrow will be your next big announcement of showing the actual product. Is that correct?
Yeah. So 11 a.m. Pacific. What is that? 1 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow is the reveal of the platform at long last.
Great.
So yeah, it's going to be fun to kind of dive into the details of how it all works. Indeed.
Brilliant.
Great.
Yeah. Casey, I want to thank you for jumping on and hosting this panel today.
I love this stuff. So thank you for the invitation. I love talking to this stuff. I love meeting creators who work in the space, who understand it and are very passionate about telling other people about it. So you'll always have my support, guys. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Casey.
And to all of you in the Macroverse with us, we love you. We appreciate you. And I must also shout out discord.gg/Macroverse. We've also got an incredible community there. So great place to connect with creators, with us, and with the community that's active there.
Brilliant.
Awesome, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a great, wonderful rest of your day. And we will be starting another event in about 15 minutes.
5 minutes, but yeah.
Oh, sorry.
In about 5 minutes. Okay, we'll see you there.
All right, over. There we go.
Bye.
Cheers, y'all.